Welcome back. I thought I'll first share with you this Model 94. We're actually going to be talking about gun designers, not necessarily gun manufacturers, and there's a big difference, as you know. But I'll first tell you about this Model 94. So this is made in Japan, and as you know, I like the Model 94. I've got another one on the table from, I think, 1941. Got a lot of guns around here today because of the subject, which is gun designers. Actually, more specifically, I'm going to answer a question which many people ask me, and who do I consider, or who is generally considered the greatest gun designer of all time? So that's why we've got all these guns. At one point, I had so many guns out here. We're probably going to need more than one kind of episode to cover this, but I think you'll find it interesting. Anyway, made in Japan, Model 94, angle eject. So I thought I would probably get maybe 2 or 3 inch groups out of this little rifle or carbine. And anyway, I thought I'd show it to you. It shoots like 1 inch groups at 100 yards. It doesn't matter who's pulling the trigger. Just a fantastic performance from a little 30-30. So I thought I'd share that to you. That's a John Browning design, of course. Anyway, getting back to the subject, I have to be careful. I got so many guns here. So I thought, in fairness to everybody that sent me all these notes and letters and emails and whatnot, which are all good to receive, we'll just cover the main designers. Some of them you'll probably know. Some of them you may not know. And have I owned most of them? Probably. And that's why I thought I'd share my awareness of these different designers, the amazing minds. And before I get into it, and before you turn off in boredom, the neat thing about gun design is it incorporates so many different types of knowledge. So some of the most interesting designs that I've seen come from people that work out of their garage. Maybe they're down the street from you. You don't have to necessarily have a PhD in rocket science. You know how it is with inventions. Most of the big inventions where one person could make the discovery, the invention, that's all gone. Now the inventions are all made by corporations, and it's incremental, it's small steps. We already have the wheel, we've got electricity, and so on. So the inventions are hardly known. You know, there are innovations and there are cool websites and things like that. But overall, the days where one mind comes up with one, let's say, leap forward are behind us. But anyway, people keep trying, and I love everything that you send me. And I kind of loved going through all these guns. You know, like I said, I've collected and bought and sold guns for probably 30 years or more. So you learn a few things. But getting back to the point, who is the greatest gun designer of them all? And that's tricky because there are so many great gun designers. So what do we have first on the list? And I actually had to put some papers here so I remember what I'm talking about. So Paul Mauser, of course, Germany. Germany shows up a lot. So does the United States. Actually, many countries. But I've got a Mauser right here. Had to put on my lap. We ran out of room. You're all familiar with the 98. And what did I really want to share with you? I mean, the Mauser is one of those designs. It's a turn bolt. The locking system we've covered before. And at the time that the Mauser came out, of course, every country wanted to have the leading edge weapon or firearm system. And so, you know, you can get Mausers, Brazilian, Argentinian, Mexican, and then as time passed, manufacturing techniques changed, and so companies came up with things like the Remington 700 and the Model 70 Winchester. I think there's one behind me. They're all Mausers. They're just modified Mausers. So a huge case can be made, and many of you wrote me this, that Paul Mauser was the greatest gun designer. This turn bolt system, where the lugs turn is actually used in most locking rifles, even if they're not bolt actions. You can find this on Model 88 Winchesters, Model 100 Winchesters, the Browning Bar sporting rifle. All kinds of rifles have this system. The Garand, it's essentially a gas-operated turn bolt. Anyway, somehow I ended up with Paul Mauser on the list first. That doesn't mean that he's the greatest gun designer, but that's if we were running like an awards program. Got a lot of votes for Paul Mauser, and there were many versions before the 98, and many versions after, like I said, commercial versions. I had to pause. We had some kind of background noise. On a totally different note, we've got Benjamin Tyler Henry from the Henry rifle. We've got Joseph Ryder. Probably you may never have heard of Joseph Ryder. We looked at this last time. The rolling block. What I liked about the rolling block is this mechanism. I had to write this down. It kind of fully demonstrates that it's not only what happens, but when it happens, when you're designing rifles or anything. And that may be simple-minded. But essentially, I mean, this mechanism is not locked until the hammer drops. So what happens is a tremendously strong action, and when it happens is when the hammer falls. And I've seen adaptations of this in many different forms, and not just firearms. But definitely Joseph Ryder contributed to what we know about firearms and what we think, and these were used around the world. When they came out, of course, breech loading cartridges, that means cartridges that were obviously loaded from the back, were a new thing. And the pressures and powders were something that everybody was trying to deal with. So significant action. But is Joseph Ryder the greatest designer of all time? I don't think so. He just kind of wrote one great book comparing it to literature. And others as well. Then what do we have? Samuel Colt, and I just don't have room for Colts. You all know Colts. The revolver, in case you're just clicking on the channel and don't know anything about guns. Then we've got John Moses Browning. We've got a few of those on the table. We'll talk about them. Eugene Stoner. Maybe you know that name. The Armalite AR-15 that turned into the M16. Richard Jordan Gatling, the Gatling gun, a multi-barreled machine gun. Christian Sharps, the single shot, falling block, old, reliable, just a great rifle. Mikhail Kalashnikov. This is an interesting one. I've got sort of an incomplete one here. It's missing the pistol grip and a bunch of other parts, but this is essential. Oh, and it's Chinese, but there are copies from everywhere. And if you went by the number of copies of the firearm invented by the inventor, Mikhail Kalashnikov, this would probably be the winner of the greatest arms designer of all time. I was talking to a couple of military people, and they felt that it's upwards of 150 million of these in different variations have been made. And that may even be a conservative number. So probably like yourselves, I went on Google to check, and it says 100 million, but who knows who's producing what, and I don't know how and what China reports, but definitely an amazing designer, and we could probably devote episodes to the AK, but that's probably already been done by other channels. I don't know. The Garand, I've got a couple of those in the vault. Fantastic gas loading rifle. Again, a remarkable contribution to guns, but not necessarily the best designer. The designer of the Uzi, the 9mm submachine gun, comes up. Uzziel Gal, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Ali Follett Remington, that's good that we come up with that, because a lot of people sent me letters and so on about Winchester and Remington. And you're probably aware of this, but they actually didn't really come up with many or any guns. They were not designers, they were manufacturers. For example, what should we use? The big lever action. So Winchester marketed this 1895. Theodore Roosevelt used it in 405 Winchester. Just a magnificent piece of integrated engineering solutions to some typical firearms problems. But this was a John Browning design. So was the Model 94 Winchester, which is the one I talked about at the beginning of the video. This one's 1941. Very slick. Getting back to that first comment, I mean, when you work the older ones, you can feel that the steel is different from the products made in Japan, the 94s. Anyway, you just can't argue with that accuracy, which to me is astonishing. But getting back to the list, we've got Remington. So yeah, Remington made great rifles. I think America's oldest gun maker, if I'm not wrong, in kind of a transition mode right now for corporate reasons. We've got John Thompson, we did Eugene Stoner, we've got David Marshall Williams. You may know that name. He came up with the floating chamber, short stroke piston, M1 carbine. Quite an interesting character. You could Google that, David Marshall Williams. Some people call him Carbine Williams. And he had quite an interesting life. You can look into it and see what I'm talking about. Daniel Wesson, you may know that name, Wesson, from Smith & Wesson, of course, and he was affiliated with Horace Smith, his partner. And it was quite interesting for me reading your notes. One fellow sent me like a 5-page essay and showed how Smith & Wesson was actually the precursor to Winchester. Winchester acquired kind of a failing Smith & Wesson, and then Smith & Wesson went on to make firearms. Again, I don't have anything to show you on the table. We won't make this whole list, and I thought what I'll do is just actually set it aside for the next time we talk about these guns and go through what's on the table. So John Marlin. Now this is my favorite Marlin. I actually haven't had a chance to show you this rifle. It's color case hardened. You can see that it's not a 336. They call it the Marlin Safety, and these are always engraved on the, or usually engraved on the top. And there are people that collect these and know a lot more about them than I do. All I know is it's a very slick action and looks different from the 336, but you can see that the 336 is kind of in here. Beautifully accurate. This one has an aperture sight, and I'll show you this side. Oh, by the way, that's a replacement butt plate, which you can get on the web. I don't know what happened to the original. And then somebody put a compass in here. I guess they were hunters, and I see that actually often on collector guns. We'll have to address that somehow. And there's the Marlin Bullseye in the stock. But these are a marvelous rifle. And is Marlin the greatest gun inventor of all time? I don't think so, but he came up with a great rifle. And then shifting over here, Arthur Savage. And you all know how I like the Model 99 or 1899. Just a wonderful mechanism. Really a modified and very unique, essentially tipping block. Whenever I work these, I always think, for some reason, of the Martini, even though that's probably off track, but, or may seem off track, but again, it's not that these fellows like Marlin and Savage only came up with one thing. More than that. Oh, and here's a 336. This is the youth model, so similar in design to the Safety I just showed you. But you can see we've got an ejection port. Very handy little rifle. I always thought this is one of the most ideal currently made youth rifles. I didn't bother putting a scope on it, just This particular one is exceptionally accurate. And with metallic sights, you don't have to think in a way as much as you do as with a scope. Maybe it's only me. I have lots of scopes too, but anyway, that's another Marlin. And then of course we have another manufacturer, kind of like Remington and Winchester, and that's Bill Ruger. I have to be careful with my rifles here. And this is the number one. I forget what model, the KK something something. It's the stainless with a laminate stock, as you can see. It's 4570. We've looked at this before, and just a wonderful rifle. But once again, I think Bill Ruger came up with some very interesting manufacturing techniques, including investment casting, I guess at his pine tree castings. But was he in the same category as, say, John Browning or Mauser? Not really, but modernized things and made a very interesting and excellent and successful bolt action to Model 77. His 22 pistol, I mean, again, it's a unique blowback. They all are uniquely manufactured pistol. And quite a few others, the 44 Magnum, and a lot in the handguns. Of course, the company's changed significantly since Bill passed away. It's become more of a corporate machine, which they all do. Here's a shotgun. John Browning, like, there was really no limit to what he could come up with. Sold again by Winchester. You can see the, as people say, the guts kind of fall out of the action. And then it all closes, and I think didn't we go shooting with this once? I think I made a video, and just a tremendous little shotgun. Anyhow, I think what I'll do is stop there in our adventure. We've got a lot of gun designers to cover. There are all kinds of British gun designers, there are Russian gun designers, German, Austrian, Gaston Glock. We have to talk about Glocks. Like I said, I've owned, a product or two of most of them. The Russian guns are quite interesting. So a lot of them were the result of a collective effort, which was sort of the method they used in the Soviet Union. But there are still names that stand out, like Simonov, amazing. And we'll talk about all those, and then at the end of it all, we've still got a lot of guns to cover. I think there will be a clear winner, the best gun designer of all time. And the measures for that, I think, are pretty straightforward. Not just successful and popular, but long-lasting, and hopefully many. And like I said, yeah, those of you that sent letters that the Mauser 98 cannot be beaten, that's probably true. Well, that is true. But, and did it make, I don't know, how many copies of Mausers are there? If you include all the Remingtons and Winchesters, and they're all essentially Mausers, modified for manufacturing reasons, there could be, I don't know, 200 million of them, but, in different versions. Anyhow, I hope that's meaningful to you, and we'll pick up the discussion on the next video. Might be a few days. I actually don't mind sharing with you. I had to have some repairs done to my legs. I had a blood clot in my right leg, so I got that fixed. These machines, so which we are too. But I keep going, and we'll make the next video. And I think at the end of part 2, we'll show you some more, including this fantastic Browning designed BAR, one of the most remarkable rifles ever. They're hard to come by now. This is an Ohio Ordnance copy. It's maybe not for alpine hunting, but what a great rifle it is, and accurate, just wonderful to shoot. It's actually heavy to handle. I think it's over 20 pounds. Anyhow, we'll see you next time. And before I forget, if you can help me and help the channel on Patreon, that's great. I noticed some people joined, which is wonderful. Thanks for being here, and between now and next time, take good care, and we'll see you then.